The ego makes that possible. It facilitates that, and it's not really anything more than that. It's a tool through which we can operate with the material realm. That's all. Okay? It doesn't mean the ego needs to be eradicated. It's a tool. The problem is when the ego says, I'm setting up and taking over the whole house. That's when the ego becomes a problem, because now we're attached to it and we believe that's us. Okay? So what does the ego do? It keeps us in a mind prison. It keeps us in the dark. It keeps us in ignorance. That's what that force is. It's a force that works through fear to keep us in the dark, to keep us in ignorance. Okay? Not accepting any new information. It does this two ways. Ego attachment keeps people in fear and ignorance by holding them in two modes of thought. The first mode of thought is, I couldn't possibly be wrong about what I believe that I already know. Could not possibly be wrong about that. This is religious thought. It's also scientific dogmatic thought, rigid skepticism. See, it's both of those worldview imbalances, again, left brain and right brain imbalance. All right? The second way that ego attachment keeps us in ignorance, the second modality of thought it keeps us in is, I don't want to know. So either I already have all the information I need and I know, and I couldn't possibly be wrong about what I say I know, or I don't want to know. Okay? Those are the two ways the ego holds us in that state of mental bondage. Ego ultimately prevents us from admitting that we were wrong about anything and from learning anything new. Now, from the level of consciousness I used to be at to the level of consciousness I'm at today, I must have had to say I was wrong about 100,000 times. Easily. And I'm sure before it's all said and done in this particular lifetime, I'll say it 100,000 more times. Next point of what it means to truly be awake. It involves exercising discernment and judgment. And these are things that the New Age community will tell you, no, that's not about what it means to be awake. Don't judge. Don't try to be discerning. Okay? Highly, highly important. So let's look at these modalities. What is discernment or judgment? It is our inherent ability to distinguish reality from illusion. Or in other words, to know the truth. It's being able to judge the difference between two or more things is what makes us say, well, this one is more in harmony with truth, and that's the path I should take. You know, it's our navigation system. I put images of a scale here. It's how we weigh things in the balance to understand what's better, what is a better choice at this particular time and place. If you don't exercise that kind of discernment, who knows what anybody could possibly get you to believe? Your filters aren't going to be up, okay? You're just going to be in that state like we are from infancy to 6, okay? Just taking everything in and accepting it all, you know, like in a hypnagogic trance. And that's what the mind controllers want. They don't want that filter of judgment and discernment raised. They don't want shields up. They want your shields down. So you never really process the information coming at you to determine whether it's true or not. Telling people not to judge, quote unquote, is like telling them to shut off the processor and the virus protection software in their computer. Turn on your computer, then open up the box, go to the main board, pull out the processor. How much more are you going to be doing with that computer? Not a damn thing. On some operating systems, you turn your virus protection software off for even a couple of days, you're going to have problems, okay? Because that's a filtration mechanism to stop bad things from getting in. Well, that's what your discernment and judgment is, okay? Judgment and discernment are what allow us to effectively process information, filter out inaccuracies, make sense of all that information that's coming in, and then make accurate decisions regarding which course of action will lead to the betterment of our overall experience. That's the role of discernment and judgment. And that's why anybody that's telling you not to do those things is a deceiver, whether deliberately or by rote, repetition. Exercising discernment and judgment is how we diagnose problems, how we diagnose what we are currently doing wrong, so that we may arrive at knowledge about how to solve any given problem. That's how you arrive at the solution. You have to exercise discernment and judgment so you know what went wrong. Where did we make the mistake? How can we correct that? Okay? And this is true whether the problem is existing at a societal, a personal level, or at a societal level. The word diagnosis itself means by way of knowledge. It comes from the Greek language. Dia in Greek means through or by way of, by means of. Okay? And then the Greek noun gnosis means knowledge in Greek. So you put them together, through knowledge, by way of knowledge, by means of knowledge. That's how we understand what's wrong, so we know what we need to do to correct the situation. This may be the most important single slide you will ever see in your life in any presentation, right here. Because what this is doing is describing how we as human beings actually create our reality. Not in the New Age secret sense, but in the real world, feet on the ground, spirit and flesh sense. Okay? The first or baseline foundation is information. Information. Available information. This information constitutes potential knowledge that we can gather, process, eventually understand, and eventually act upon. But at this level, all it is information. Okay? In the trivium methodology, they call this the grammar step. Okay? So it's all the components that you need to assemble to make sense of anything. All right? Now, we can arrive at knowledge or not. Again, underneath knowledge on that box, it says or lack thereof. So the opposite of assembling that information and not doing that process, not arriving at knowledge, is ignorance, in which case we build a very different reality. On top of that knowledge, we're building something else. So if that's not firm, if that's not a firm base, if it's not based in truth, you're not going to be building a solid structure that is going to be capable of standing. All right? Is our decision-making processes regarding what we have just taken in. These processes take place in the mind. That's why mind control is so important to maintaining the slavery condition that this world is in, because it's an attack on the decision-making processes, okay? The processes that take place in the human mind, they're chosen by each individual, and they are based upon the available information. So this is the processing stage. We process the information. And when we process it, either we arrive at an accurate understanding of it, so now we are either aligning our thoughts to truth or not, okay? Or we don't understand it. We've arrived at confusion regarding what this information means on the first step, all right? Then above that, we're going to build on top of that. The third process, all right, is the behavior or the output, as we've already talked about in the human nature section. The output onto the screen of life then occurs, because each individual's behavior is, by definition, going to be based upon the quality of their decision-making processes in step 2, which were in turn based upon the quality of their available information in step 1. That's why if you want to control the output, you always control it from available information. Hence, hiding knowledge, the occult, okay? That's where the powers that should not be control the world from the level of available information. So, what then occurs? What happens? These are the 3 steps we work with: knowledge, understanding, and wisdom, or lack thereof. Again, that's grammar in the bottom step. In the trivium, this would be grammar, logic, and rhetoric. Or we can use the computer analogy. This is input, this is processing, and this is output. Okay? All of those different ways of looking at it hold true. But then there's something that happens, manifestation. The manifested reality that is the quality of our shared experience in this world. The quality of the condition which manifests in any given society is based upon the aggregate quality of behavior within that society. Aggregate quality of behavior, meaning in the totality. So, if you have the aggregate number of human beings in a society behaving morally, you will have a society that generates a result of order. If you have an aggregate amount of people in society that are behaving immorally, you will have a society that has generated chaos, slavery, tyranny, etc. And we're going to be talking about that process later. The next point of being awake. Being awake means being mentally free of all false religions. So, by definition, we have to define what is a religion then. What do I mean by the term religion? Religion as a word in English comes from the Latin language, from the verb religare, okay? And that means, the word religare in Latin means to tie back, to hold back, or to thwart from forward progress, to bind by tying up. And that's one connotation of the word religare in Latin. There is an alternative definition as well. It means to reunite with or tie back to something that has been separated. You're going and you're then taking it back in and putting it back together. That's a positive connotation of what true religion is about. First, I'm talking about false religion here, okay? So these are the things that tie us back or hold us back from where we say we want to go. They hold us back from truth. They hold us back from forward progress in consciousness, all right? So a religion, a false religion, qualify it as such, is a system of control that is based in unchallenged dogmatic belief which holds back the progress of human consciousness. That's what a false religion is. And again, it's all about the brain, the mind in the cage, the head cage, okay? Not being able to make any progress because we're not changing our thoughts. And again, if thoughts, the processing of the information doesn't change, we can't change the output through behavior, and therefore we can't change the manifested result. So if people are attached to a religion, nothing can change because their behavior ultimately cannot change, and therefore the manifested reality cannot change. So I'm going to piss everybody off now by attacking all religions on the planet. Every single one, even the ones you didn't think were religions. Okay? All of the cultural religions, of course, constitute religion. Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, Shintoism. You name the religion, if it's an ism, that's what I'm talking about up here in the top right-hand corner. The cultural religions. Okay? Now, I also arranged this slide with these on the right and these on the left for a reason. These are the religions that work through the right brain hemisphere. These are the religions that work through the left brain hemisphere. Okay? So we have the cultural religions, as I am going to call them. And then this is the net right here that catches anything that gets sifted, okay, that this big net here doesn't catch, right? Then we have a finer mesh net down here to catch people called the New Age movement, okay? So they're all right brain modes of imbalance, and they're all control systems. And if you haven't figured out that this one is a control system, you might want to check out my seminar called New Age Bullshit. And that's available in the back in actually, I think, 3 different formats. But I have a 2-disc set of the seminar I just did in Asheville, North Carolina, which is my favorite version of it. Just to mention, I do have lots of DVDs in the back. If people want to check them out during lunch or afterward, feel free to do so. The left brain religions, we have politics or government, the religion of authority, the belief in authority, which we'll be talking a lot about later. And then, of course, scientism, which I've already briefly touched on. Okay, they work through the left brain. And most people, even a lot of people here today in this room possibly, are attached to one of these religions or another. I won't ask by show of hands, okay? But more likely than not, we have some people here who are even attached to some of these religions. And they're all ultimately ruled by one overarching religion, which is the God of this world, and that is the monetary system. This is the religion that the least amount of people on the earth are out of the mental identification with. The least amount of people, therefore, it is the most powerful religion. Money is the most powerful religion operating on the planet. There is no more universally unchallenged, dogmatic belief that is operating in the human species than the belief in magical pieces of paper called money, or credits on a computer screen, okay? That is the overarching universal piece of mental bondage software operating in humanity. If you believe that money is real, you're under mind control, okay? If you believe it has intrinsic value, you're under mind control, okay? And you'll just think about its operation with the other religions. Every one of them. It's intimately and intricately inseparable from, okay? They put this up as the pedestal. If you really think about what's behind this, it's that. What's behind this, it's that. What's behind this, it's that. What's behind this? Oh, it's certainly that. Okay, just go to a New Age Expo and you'll find that out real fast. Okay? They're all illusory. There is nothing real there on the screen. In these two, and even in this one, to a certain extent, okay, there are some seeds of truth. I'm not going to tell you throw out all real science. Okay, we can know a lot about the laws of nature through real science, but if you think what we laughingly call science in the world today is real science, you're kidding yourself. This is done through government-approved grant monies. That if the people here, or who's controlling here, don't want something to be discovered by science because it's going to cost them a whole lot of this doesn't discover it. That's called scientism. And I worked in that community as well, and I'm telling you that's how it works. I heard a conversation, as a quick anecdote, I supported computer systems in the hematology oncology department of the University of Pennsylvania, okay? And I heard a researcher telling one of the heads of the department in the oncology division, HEMONC, blood cancer studies, okay, in the School of Medicine, this could be a real breakthrough. There might even be a cure in this. And the person whipped their head around and said, don't you ever let me hear you use that word in here again, or you will be out of here on your ass. And the word was cure. Because the person said, this gets cured, we're out of business, that's all of the grant money that's been coming into this institution for the last 30 years, and all these jobs will disappear overnight. He said, don't ever let me hear you use that word ever again, or you will be out of here looking for a job. And thought I didn't hear it because I was sitting on the other side of the cubicle working on a laptop. That's what science is, folks, in the world today. If you don't accept that, if you don't believe that, if you don't know that that's what's going on, I don't even want to use the word belief. If you don't know that's going on, you're very naive, okay? This is all controlled by money, obviously, you know, the collection plate money and all the money that's coming in through donations to religions. And this is ultimately controlled by money. But what I want to say is there are seeds of truth in these movements as well. I'm not going to tell you no religion doesn't have any seeds of truth if you get deep enough into the absolute esoteric core of the tradition. There are seeds of truth there. They're just covered up by the exoteric aspects of the religion, which are all there as mechanisms of control. The same could be said of the New Age movement. There are certain seeds of truth, but then they get exploited, they get blown out of proportion, you know, deceptions, subtle deceptions creep into it. So that's where the filter, the discernment, the judgment mechanism is so important. So that's being out of false religions means you don't believe in or identify with any of those systems of control, of controlled belief. How do these work? I'm going to look at two particular ones, the left and right brain aspects, which I'm simply going to call government and religion. okay? And again, the left brain side, you can look at government and scientism, and the right brain side, you can look at it as religion and the New Age movement. So how do these dynamics work to control people's mind? Government works through the left brain and binds the right brain out of the way. So it works through just being in control, and it takes the right brain of intuition, creativity, and compassion out of the picture. It is based upon the erroneous and dogmatic belief that there is such a thing as, quote, authority that is vested in certain human beings, which gives them special, quote unquote, rights which other people do not possess. When left brain imbalance is chronic, it eventually the person eventually develops psychopathic tendencies if left unchecked, leading some people to the belief that they have a right to rule over other people through violence. And this is the condition that we are in today. The right brain religions, the cultural religions and the New Age movement religion, works through the right brain and it binds the left brain out of the way. So it works on belief and just feeling, and it binds out the logical part of the brain. And this is the part that, you know, the tagline I use for all religion is, hey, if we just give up our free will and our personal responsibility, some deity, government, guru, extraterrestrial race, or mystical force will save us from our own ignorance. Don't you know that's how it works? Right brain imbalance eventually creates blind acceptance and collectivist groupthink, leading to a condition in which willing followers, order followers, will readily submit to authority. So that's what right brain imbalance does. That's why religion is such an important mind control dialectic. Now, you put both of these dialectics together. Dialectics just means providing a choice to get you to the same place. That's all it is. It's a construct of the mind that says, give people a false choice, okay? Well, you know, do you want to believe in materialistic, Darwinistic scientism, or do you want to believe in, you know, whatever is the religious flavor of the day, okay? Because they're both just a choice that gets you to the same place. Control, okay? It doesn't ever lead to freedom. That's not one of the choices in the dialectic. What happens when we have both of these things operating? When you have both of these things operating, and there's plenty of people out there that believe in both government and religion, you have a whole mind in chains. Now, when you put together a whole bunch of these, a whole bunch of minds in chains, and that leads to an aggregate society with a whole bunch of minds in chains and mental bondage, what kind of a society do you get? You get one that looks like this. You get a whole world in chains, which again is where we are at. And again, I hope people are at least conscious enough here to know this is where we are. You know, if you don't know that this is where we are, you know, really go back and start with my work from the very, very beginning. But that's where the earth is at right now, in a state of total bondage, total slavery. You know, it's just been very effectively masked and put under the guise of true freedom. I like to say we're living on a free-range animal farm. You know, it's just a free-range farm that we're on. And being awake means understanding that, and we'll get to that. Being awake means knowing that there is no such thing as knowledge which is negative or bad, and that only willful ignorance of reality is what creates negative consequences in our world. Knowledge is never bad. Knowledge is never negative. To have knowledge is to have empowerment. That's why the dark occultists want to constantly try to hide knowledge, or to get people to not pay attention to knowledge which is important by dissuading them. Don't look into that. Here, have this distraction instead. You don't want to look into that. That's bad. Or that's unnecessary. There's nothing to that. They don't even need, their mind control techniques are so effective in today's world, they don't even need to hide the knowledge anymore. The knowledge is already out there. It's exploded onto the earth already. But most people are just completely ignoring it because they're so wrapped up in distractions. I tell people we're living in post-apocalyptic times because the apocalypse only means the great revealing, from apo in Greek, which means away from or off of, and kalyptine, a verb in Greek, which means to cover or to conceal. So to go away from concealing, from concealment or hiding, is what apocalypse actually means in English. To take away the veil, to take away the cover, and to reveal something for what it truly is. To know the truth is the apocalypse. And that's already done. The knowledge is out there. The problem is we've rejected it as an entire people, as an entire species. And once the apocalypse has happened, then there is either transformation and upliftment or ascension, or there is judgment. And not the kind of filtering in the mind. I'm talking about negative judgment by creation, by nature. Because the truth is there, it's been revealed for you to see as it is. Did you accept it? Did you change as a result for the better, or didn't you? Then you have to lie down in that bed that you made. So being awake means knowing there's no such thing as knowledge which is bad. All knowledge is empowering, and then it's how it's used. Is it going to be used for control? Is it going to be used for spiritual uplift? But ignoring the negative is always going to get you the same thing. It's always going to get you bondage. Okay? You can never ignore reality and prosper. It is an impossibility. It is a law of nature. If you ignore reality, there are negative consequences for that ignorance. You can ignore reality. You have the free will to ignore reality. But you do not have the free will to ignore reality without negative consequence. That is a natural law. And this is what people in many communities will tell you we should be doing. See no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. That's bad. Don't pay attention to that. I don't want to talk about the corruption. I don't want to talk about pedophilia, child sacrifice. I don't want to talk about, slave rings. I don't want to talk about people working for slave wages in slavery conditions. I don't want to talk about that government is slavery. I don't want to talk about that religion is mental bondage and mind control. No, don't learn about any of those things. Just try to follow your bliss, which we'll also talk about. Ignoring that which is negative because it makes you feel uncomfortable can only do one thing: get you more negativity. That's all it can do. And I don't mean just you personally. Yeah, you can run down to the tropics and ignore reality and somehow live an existence that for you is a little pocket of comfort in the individuated sense. But I'm saying the more people that ignore reality on this planet, the more the aggregate population of humanity will go into deeper and deeper bondage. And each individual that's doing that is contributing to that overall dynamic. So this is the position that means that you're completely asleep. Putting your head in the sand, not wanting to look at the negative, not wanting to look at the truth about what is in the here and now, regardless of how ugly that may be. And please note the body posture. This is like the creator making a really awesome joke, okay? Because if you have your head in the sand, your ass is up in the air, okay? It's a beautiful thing that the body was designed, that the only way you could put your head in the sand is being bent over and ready to get it, okay? So, we do not give power away to something that is harmful simply by putting our attention upon it and becoming aware of its existence. This is a New Age deception, okay? Just becoming aware of something is empowering you. You're recognizing what's really there, so then you could take necessary precautions, or you could start doing what is required energetically to start to change it. Okay? Seeing the negative for what it actually is does one thing. It creates an ability in us to steel ourselves against its harmful effects. This is like diagnosing a problem. Well, you now know what the problem is. You know what you're up against. You're not in ignorance anymore. Now you know what to do. Okay? We may even be able to not just see it coming and take precautionary measures, but we may even be able to avert the harmful effects altogether by starting to work to change that energetic dynamic. But only if we have the knowledge about what's wrong. So refusing to look at critical information is the opposite of being awake. Okay? Refusing to look at critical information just because it may make you feel uncomfortable or scared because you perceive it as quote unquote negative is willfully choosing to remain in a state of ignorance. And willfully choosing to remain in a state of ignorance is called unconsciousness. Or in other words, you're completely asleep. The next part of this dynamic of waking up to the negative is stepping out of what I call emotional mind control, okay? Seeing the negative for what it is means you can't be under emotional mind control. Too many people are in this. They think, well, hey, if he gets up there and he makes me feel bad by telling me all these things, somehow that can't be true because it doesn't make me feel good. Well, whoever told you the truth has to make you feel good? New Agers told people that. The New Age movement puts that out there, you know? Well, you want to just resonate with it. Oh, that made me feel really disturbed. I'm not resonating with that. That has nothing to do whether it's true or not. Okay? All that matters is whether something is true, not how it makes you feel. See, that's where the ego comes in. The ego wants to feel good. The ego wants acceptance. The ego wants to be told it's right. The ego wants comfort. It doesn't want to look at something that it's uncomfortable with hearing and say, oh yeah, that's the way it is. You know, that for many people the ego has to be really broken down over time. All right? So this is why mind controllers always want to get up there and dress up the lie. See, what I do, this is how I dress every day. I'm not coming up here in a three-piece suit. I'm coming up in the way that I dress normally. Jeans and a t-shirt, okay? I'm coming up here, I'm going to speak to you in my normal, natural voice. I'm not going to put on some fake air about me that makes you, think of me as somebody I'm not, okay? But, news broadcasters, they want to put the most physically attractive person up there, the most sweet, pleasing, calm tones in the voice, okay? Because they're getting ready to sell you a bunch of bull. And they want the ego to accept it readily, so it goes past the judgment filter. It goes past the discernment filter. And then it gets nested in the subconscious mind, and then you're acting on it without even understanding how it got planted there. That's how mind control works. So that newscaster can get up there and tell you all day long that 2 + 2 = 5. And she could say it in the most pleasant, sweet tones. It's still going to be a lie. And then the person who is completely enraged because, hey, there is rat poison in your drinking water, okay, that wants to tell you it just like that, right? That's somebody who's crazy. Look, he's telling us we're being willfully, deliberately poisoned by people who are running the water supply and who direct that process? Yeah. Okay? But you don't want to hear that because that made me feel bad. And then what can I do about that? How could I actively get involved in not having that done anymore? That takes effort. That takes work. That takes action. Well, it doesn't mean that it wasn't the truth. You could feel bad about the truth all you want. It's still true. And that's all that matters. So again, with my presentation style, it doesn't make one damn bit of difference how much you didn't like something that I said. If it was true, it remains true. Believing that we are somehow in the right to willfully ignore a message of truth just because the messenger is somehow distasteful to us is a symptom of total madness. It is a symptom of mind control and insanity and unconsciousness. And this is how people want to weigh truth. They don't want to actually look at the information. They want to look at it and say, do I feel good about that? Do I like that person? Do I like his voice? Do I like his mannerisms? Oh, then, hey, what he said must be true. I mean, how could there be any more logically fallacious way of thinking than that? And yet this is how many people think, unfortunately. And it's insanity. I don't care how much a lie is wrapped up. I don't care how much truth is disturbing. 2 plus 2 equals 5 is always going to be a lie. 2 plus 2 equals 4 is always going to be true. It still equals 4 no matter how it's dressed up or not dressed up. Next point, being awake means knowing the causal factors that have led to the current human condition and therefore knowing the solution to changing the current condition for the better. Causal factors. This is what I started explaining to people that was going to make my information that I was going to be bringing forward radically different than other people's. And on my radio show on day 1, I went on the air and I told people what I'm going to discuss here is causal factors. My show is called What on Earth is Happening, but I don't talk about daily current events. So people would think, well, isn't that an oxymoron? It's called What on Earth is Happening, but you don't talk about current events. No, because I talk about the causal factors that have led to the creation of the condition of what's happening on this planet. The underlying causes that lead to the effects that we experience. That's where power lies. So the laws of cause and effect. Every cause has its effect. Okay? You set a cause into motion, an effect will be generated. Every effect has its cause. Nothing happens just randomly or by accident. If it happens, there was a causal agency that led to that manifested condition. Everything happens according to law. Laws govern the entire universe. Okay, that doesn't mean free will does not exist within the universe. But events are happening due to laws. If we do something, there is a law that is going to determine what the effect is. Okay? If I hold this out and let go of it, it will fall because there is a law operating upon it. Cause and effect are often separated by time and space. This is why humanity has such a very difficult time understanding the relationship between their behavior and the state that is manifesting in their reality. Okay? So we are like this guy in this great image here. He's pushing that one domino over and he's saying, well, that didn't do anything to me. You know, imagine this is like a 10-mile track or something like that, you know? Well, hey, push that over, nothing happened, right? Obviously, I can do that. I'm not affected. But he's staying right there. You can look at that as that's the Earth, you know? And it's going to come back around, and he's going to feel the effect of that. Maybe not right away, but eventually. And unfortunately, this is how cause and effect work, especially with complex systems. So that bottom line there is particularly true for complex systems like an entire society. The effect is often separated by time. So, the plane of effects, or in other words, the physical world, this is where there is no power to change things from. Okay? You cannot create change from the level of that which has already manifested. All right? That is like trying to, I explain to people, it's like having a psychological condition that causes you to want to hurt yourself by cutting. I don't remember the medical term for this, but there's a condition where people want to cut themselves with like razor blades. Okay, very, very disturbing, deep underlying psychological issues going on in people that develop this. But think about this: what if we were all a society that had this horrible, mental incapacity that led us to wanting to cut ourselves, right? And then, as a solution, the biggest product that was manufactured on that whole planet was bandages. Bandages are the answer. Every commercial, here's the 75,000 different, kinds of bandages that we manufacture and sell on this planet, okay? How insane would that be? It would be complete madness. Because the problem isn't the absence of bandages. The problem isn't having to manufacture more bandages. The problem is understanding the psychological factors that are leading you to want to cut yourself, dealing with those, healing that condition inside, and then there will not be anything that you'll have to bandage. But we don't want to do that as a people. We want to focus on the effects. The plane of effects, or the physical world, is the realm where the manifested realities have already formed due to their underlying causes. The plane of effects constitutes that which has already occurred, or in other words, it's the truth already. It is the way things actually are. As such, no power to effect change lies here in the plane of effects, because that which has already occurred cannot unoccur, because it has become that which is, the truth. Human consciousness, however, as a whole, unfortunately, seems to be trapped or stuck upon the plane of effects, meaning that humanity largely remains ignorant of the underlying causes which they themselves have set into motion and which have led to the self-inflicted suffering in their lives. We are not going down to the root causal factors, in other words, the plane of causality. So, this gentleman here on the slide, he has a bad bellyache. You know, he's sitting there, he's got a really bad bellyache. Well, that didn't just happen. That's an effect. There's an underlying cause. Here's what it was. We look at the plane of causality. Well, 20 minutes earlier, he was eating a whole bunch of GMO, horrible, high sugar, high starch foods, a lot of sweets, a lot of snacks, etc. That, he just loaded in gluttonously, and 20 minutes later, he had the bad bellyache. Well, it's a law. You do this one thing, you're going to get a particular result. You change that behavior, you'll get a different result. The plane of causality is the mental world. It is the realm of mind. This is where causes are set into motion prior to manifesting as formed realities. This plane of causality constitutes the causal factors, or the why, the underlying why, where all power is at, which underlie and precede all manifested things and events. All power to change things lies in this realm, the plane of causality, the mental realm, okay? Human consciousness must, quote, move away from the plane of the effects, okay, just thinking about things in just physical terms, to the plane of causality in order for human beings to understand the causal factors of the conditions which they are collectively manifesting in their lives. Only when our consciousness goes to the causal factors will humanity ever be able to co-create their reality on a conscious level, rather than an unconscious one. So I'll give you an example. People constantly say to me, I get emails all the time, Mark, name names. Tell me who some of the higher level Satanists are in the world, who are the mind controllers. Well, who cares? Does it matter? If I told you a list of 50 names, and just let's say, okay, not telling anybody to do this, but just let's say some extremists went out and assassinated those 50 people because they look at them as the people who are causing all the negative things that are going on in the world. Do you really actually believe that would change anything in the world? Do you actually believe that would do one damn thing? It wouldn't change one thing, because there's 500,000 people that are mentally in the condition where they will readily step right into the position that that person occupied and do the same damn things that they were previously doing. And the machine will roll on as if nothing ever occurred. Because nothing changed in the mind. Nothing changed in the mind. And just doing something like that, rearranging the deck furniture on the Titanic, as the old expression goes. You're not actually changing any of the causal factors. You're thinking that somehow you're going to just do something in the physical world, and then the problem is going to be solved, when everybody's still thinking the same way. And that thought is what has led to the manifestation of the conditions that you say you don't want. But no, you don't want to actually focus on changing the thought processes. You want to change the physical world events, the physical world things and people. Good luck with that approach. Let me know how it works out for you. That's what I tell the people who email nonsense like that to me. Here's again, whenever I make a graphic, I try to make it as simple as possible to convey the idea as easily as possible. You just look at these two realms, okay, the plane of causality and the plane of effects. You can look at this as the physical world at the bottom level, then at a much higher level of awareness we have the mental world, the why that underlies everything, the plane of causality, where all power to affect change is at. When we do things up here, when we make decisions up here, when we change mental thought processes, it has a trickle-down effect into the realm of the physical, the manifested realities. All right? So here's where consciousness has to go. We have to flip from being focused on this, which is all the problems in the world. I'm not saying don't be aware of those problems. Once you're aware, you have to ask this little question right there. That tiny little seemingly insignificant three-letter question, why, with a question mark at the end, the most powerful word that could ever be spoken by a human being, okay? And, when you understand then the causal factors that are leading to these conditions, there's where power to change lies. And that lies in mind, ladies and gentlemen, and that is why they have to control the mind. The powers that should not be, the powers that want things to stay in the current state of slavery that they're at. That's why they have to control the mind, okay? The plane of effects, no power to affect change lies in that realm, because that's where, unfortunately, that's where human consciousness seems trapped at. People are focused on the symptoms. I'm not telling you don't be aware of the symptoms. That's how you make a diagnosis. But then, once you're aware of the symptoms, you have to understand, why did those symptoms manifest? What are the causal factors that led to that condition? Then change those causal factors. And the causal factors that have led to the current human condition is thinking that is completely out of alignment with truth and natural law. That is what has led to our current condition. So when people ask the question, why are we going into a prison as a society? Why is the earth being more and more enslaved? Why are we losing freedom? Why is a totalitarian police state rising worldwide? It's not just here, it's everywhere. The causal factor for humanity's continuing loss of freedom is that humanity as a whole, in the aggregate, as a species, remains completely ignorant of natural law. That big realm of knowledge, that macrocosmic realm of occult knowledge that we talked about, we've largely been looking at the smaller realm, the individuated realm, the realm of mind, the realm of self in this first part. This part I'm going to start switching into what are these laws of nature that we have to be aware of, that are occulted, that are hidden from our sight. And that's the ultimate causal factor. Humanity's ignorance of those laws is what's putting us into a prison, societally. And let me tell you something, you'll never hear about this in the New Age movement, because this is the most occulted knowledge on the face of the earth, and it is the solution. This is the solution to the current human condition of slavery, and there isn't another solution. Not because I'm presenting it, not because I say so, because it is the truth that is discoverable by any human being, period. It is what is there. And until we do discover it as a species in the aggregate sense, expect more of the same. Expect more slavery. Expect more suffering. It will never change unless this causal factor, ignorance of natural law, changes. That's it. Now, let's talk about this point, and this is the last point until our lunch break. Being awake means understanding and living in harmony with natural law, the universal spiritual laws of morality. So, what are these laws? How do they operate? What is natural law? Now, I obviously cannot represent an 8-hour seminar today within this seminar, okay? This is a seminar I gave back in October of 2013 in Connecticut. It was called Natural Law, the real law of attraction and how to apply it in your life. It's probably a seminar I'll be giving probably more times in the future, but I got it filmed really well professionally by Richard Grove and the Tragedy and Hope team. And it hit the internet in December, right around Christmas time. I think it hit the internet on Christmas Eve, actually. And it has really exploded my work into the consciousness of many people, because a lot of other websites picked up this seminar and shared it, and I'm very happy that they did. But if you are not familiar with this seminar, if there is one thing in all of my work that I think you need to become familiar with, it is this seminar. I have them available in the back, but again, all of the videos are for free on my website. There is nothing that I sell on DVD in physical format that I don't make freely available on my site as well. There is nothing for sale on my website, by the way. I don't sell anything on the site. I only sell things at physical presentations to help, with travel costs and help with, doing the things that I need to do during, physically during the trips and things like that. So that's why there's some merchandising in the back. But if people say, what is the one thing that I should go to if I only have a certain limited amount of time to check out regarding your work, it is these 3 videos. The Natural Law Seminar that I gave in Connecticut. It is the most powerful and important information that I've ever put out in one unified format. Again, if you can spend the time and attention on it, I always recommend my podcast From the Very Beginning, which lays down critically important foundational prerequisite knowledge, even to understanding natural law. So that's my big recommendation, but if you only can dedicate a little bit of time to the understanding of my work, the Natural Law Seminar is it. So, what is natural law? In a nutshell, okay, in a condensed form, natural law is the body of universal, non-man-made, binding and immutable laws which act as the governing dynamics for the consequences of human behavior.